like you.
Nobody asked for your opinion, Walter. You're just a simple little farm boy, and the rest of us are all sophisticated beatniks.
Hello, and welcome to another bad movie review. This time we are looking at 1959's A Bucket of Blood. This is a Roger Corman film that runs approximately 1 hour and 6 minutes, starring Dick Miller as Walter Paisley, Barboura Morris as Carla, Antony Carbone as Leonard DeSantis, which is Walter's boss, Julian Burton as Maxwell, Ed Nelson as Art, and Bert Convy as Lou. This movie is filled with character actors and TV movie actors. And most notably, Dick Miller was in Gremlins, and he also played a character named Walter Paisley in Chopping Mall, which was a little bit of an homage reference to this movie. So we have Walter, who is a waiter or busboy at a local beatnik bar slash club slash coffee house, and he's desperate to impress and make friends with the artistic and arrogant beatniks that hang out there, and they are some really pretentious people. His boss is an overbearing man named Leonard DeSantis, and he treats Walter rather poorly in the beginning of the film. Walter isn't the sharpest guy, but he seems like a pretty good-natured fella, but there's a lot more going on, and things are always subject to change. We find out there are undercover cops there named Art and Lou. Art is played by Ed Nelson, like I said, and Lou by Bert Convy. Ed Nelson played the governor in Police Academy 3, as well as tons of TV appearances, so he will look familiar to 80s and 90s TV viewers or movie fans. He was in a ton of shows. Same with Bert Convy. He was in a bunch of movies and TV shows throughout the 70s and 80s. Very recognizable actor from a litany of programs. And of course, these undercover cops are there to figure out who's slinging dope, in this case heroin, or horse as they called it. And there's also rich people looking to meet a beatnik artist type so they can impress their society friends or find an up-and-coming artist and get their work cheap. But when the landlady's cat gets stuck in the wall, somehow, Walter decides to try and free it by stabbing at the wall. And of course he kills the cat, because although the normal cat doesn't abide by the laws of nature, somehow it is susceptible to being stabbed. So he takes inspiration from this and covers it in clay and calls it Dead Cat. And now he's an artist, and people love it, even though the knife is still in the cat and the statue has whiskers, which apparently alarms nobody. His boss agrees to put the sculpture, air quotes, up for sale, and he's going to split the profits with Walter. The head beatnik, Maxwell, speaks highly of Walter in his snobby tones to the entire cafe or club or whatever it is, making Walter instantly popular with the other beatnik types, because Maxwell is sort of the de facto leader of the beatniks in this. Now, if I would have thought in the 90s remake of this called The Death Artist with Anthony Michael Hall, Maxwell would have been perfectly played by Stephen Fry. But instead, Julian Burton did a really good Stephen Fry impersonation before Stephen Fry had a career. I couldn't get that image out of my head of that being Stephen Fry either. It was hilarious to me. Well, now this becomes a bit of a distraction for his work, so DeSantis sends him home, and one of the local beatnik ladies, who's sort of a diehard fan, kind of a groupie for beatniks, gives Walter a little present, a little container. One of the undercovers sees this and goes after Walter. When he confronts him, things go horribly wrong. Walter doesn't know what heroin is really, but ends up in a pickle, so he begins his next sculpture. His landlady almost catches him too, but somehow he hid the body in the ceiling, because the body's just sort of floating up above and its arm hangs down. It's really confusing. I did not understand that one. And by this point, Walter's accepted the fact that he's a murder artist, which is sort of like the Joker in the 1989 Batman movie. He's a homicidal artist. Now, it's around this time that Mr. DeSantis does figure out what is going on, or at least he has a very strong strong inkling as to what's going on. And the guilt for him does kind of haunt him. So he seems to be the most tortured character in this. Walter just sort of accepts his new role in life and he's like, I'm popular now. Time to keep murdering. But DeSantis, once he figures out what Walter's muses really are, he starts to kind of have a little bit of guilt about the whole thing and even tries to direct him into doing freeform instead of lifelike art. But everybody keeps contradicting him, saying how dare you interrupt his artistic ways, proving how amoral beatniks really are. Now Walter does dress like a beatnik, which kind of makes him look like the Penguin from the 1966 Batman TV show, except for the top hat. I don't know why it reminded me of that, it just kind of did, except he's got this stupid beret thing going on. We don't get any plot in this one, but we do get full back. There's some naked back, which was probably fairly risque for 1959 to see naked back, but it's only on screen for a few seconds, and this was probably a drive-in movie anyway. He ends up getting his own party to kind of display his work. It's like a gallery event. There's other works there, but I think this was really DeSantis's way of trying to get Walter caught. And when Walter's rejected by the lady that he likes, he wants to make her immortal like the others. And he starts to really lose his marbles there. It takes a bit of a Poe turn, so Edgar Allan Poe fans are going to kind of recognize where this is going a little bit. One thing I did notice was that the cat was on display at the showing, so somebody had to have repaired that sculpture because it had been damaged. So somebody repaired that. So either DeSantis did or Walter did, but Walter couldn't have because then he would have known that DeSantis knew. So DeSantis had to have tried to repair this stupid statue. Either that or it's just a gaping plot hole. Overall, this movie is one that gets better with repeat viewings because if you don't like bad movies, you're not going to have any respect for this film. It is not a particularly great film. It's a goofy kind of film because realistically, there would have been a stench involved in this. It would have seeped through the porousness of the clay and there would be a lot of very obvious tells within 24 hours. But this takes place over several days, so there would have been a pretty ripe stink going on. And there are a few other flaws. My main complaint is that it's full of proto-hippies who are really, really annoying and pretentious. And Walter is so desperate for their attention that he doesn't realize how fleeting it is to be among people like this and how threatened they are with their own popularity. And they quickly turn on him. He's even chased by some of the beatniks by the end of the movie. And the chase scene is pretty fun, actually. They go into a lumberyard for some reason. But overall, with repeat viewings and doing like the Mystery Science Theater kind of thing, this can be a pretty fun movie. And at just over an hour, it doesn't get entirely boring. It's got a few down moments, but it's too short of a film to be annoying, but it's long enough to be hilarious for all the wrong reasons. But the direction isn't bad. It was clearly shot quickly with very few sets, giving it almost a stage play appearance. But the soundtrack is a real deterrent. It's got a lot of saxophone that's really, really dated and kind of annoying, almost as much as the poetry through the entire thing. And Walter repeats the poetry several times in the film, and it's really obnoxious, pretentious, snotty, self-involved poetry like you'd expect from a beatnik establishment. But it does fit kind of the theme. It's just very dated and obnoxious at times. So I don't recommend this for your average normie viewer. If you like B movies, this is definitely an inspiration to other B movies and probably helped a lot of people's careers just to have an extra acting credit. And the acting's not that bad. It's just a pretty rough script because the storyline is a bit silly and it does bear a lot of resemblance to Waxwork, but with a much, much lower body count, if I remember correctly. So this movie only has 4 kills, and I'm counting the cat. So the killer isn't exactly prolific, but in the confines of about an hour, you do have to have some plot development, not just murders. So pretty low body count, annoying beatniks, terrible soundtrack, but some pretty funny dialogue, and it does have kind of one of those goofy B-movie plots that really, with repeat viewings, is more and more fun. But the first time you see it, you're probably not going to like it, and if you're a normal person who doesn't like B-movies, you're going to hate this film. And I used to absolutely hate this film. Even as a B-movie lover, I absolutely detested this film. But after 3 or 4 viewings, it's okay. It's a lot lot of fun to make fun of and hang out with friends and watch if you're doing a B-movie night, but it's definitely not something you're likely to seek out under any other circumstance. So more of a hardcore B-movie property that a lot of people aren't going to enjoy, but if you like Roger Corman films, it's not bad. It's probably one of his weaker films, but definitely not the worst thing I've ever seen, but absolutely not going to make any of my favorite B-movie lists. So weak even by Roger Corman standards and only for the diehards. Beyond that, this one is widely available. There are copies all around in different mediums. I think it's even on YouTube. Since I buy a lot of physical media, I have several copies of this in multi-packs, and they tend to be very low quality, and honestly, I don't see this one getting a 4K remaster anytime soon. So it's pretty easy to come across this one if you're going to try and delve deep into some hardcore B cheese. So this, like I said, is only for the diehards and the very experienced B-movie fans and the Roger Corman lovers, because it is not going to hold up well for the average B-movie viewer. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.